Thomas Fuller wasn't a regular partner. He was an amazing father to his 3 children, Jessica, Tara, and Brandon. His wife, Ely, often grew jealous of the love and attention he gave to his children whenever he was around. Although Thomas was a millionaire and a highly respected business icon in the state, he still made out time to be with his family. He took them on vacations and gave the children treats anytime they were outstanding in their classes. He was the family guy, but was also always on a business trip. Thomas's children were always part of his life no matter how far he traveled. He sometimes took his entire family with him on his business trips. They also had time to learn a thing or two about their father's business empire. They lived in a beach house in one of the city's upper-class neighborhoods. Jessica, Tara, and Brandon never had to do anything. Thomas made sure his family got everything they wanted. They had a resident cook that always served them any meal they wanted. He also hired cleaners to keep the house and the environment always clean. Although Thomas and Ely were considered pro drivers, he was a man of comfort and charity. Thomas hired a personal driver, Raph, for the family. Raph was Thomas's oldest, serving staff. He has been with the family before the kids were born. People often believed Raph was a family member because he was never treated as a staff. Thomas loved all his employees like they were his family members. He lived by a mantra, treat your employees right, and you'll have nothing to fear. Maybe he was right. Thomas sat behind his desk in his office, smiling at his family portrait when Collins, his friend and business partner, walked in on a friendly visit. The two traded pleasantries and shared a drink. Collins looked at his friend's family portrait and jokingly said, "Why does Jessica look more like Raph than you?" "Raph is family after all," Thomas said with a crackle. The two friends laughed it off, but Thomas didn't really wave it off. He never stopped staring at the portrait and thinking about what Collins had said earlier. He got home that day with lots of thoughts in his head. Despite what was going on in his head, he still showed his family the same love and affection. Every new day brought new questions to Thomas's mind. He started paying attention to Ely and Raph's relationship. What used to be normal behavior between Ely and Raph no longer felt the same. He could see his driver open the front door for his wife and smile at her, while she returned the gesture. Thomas also noticed an unusual closeness between Ely and Raph. Has something been going on between his wife and driver under his nose? Thomas dismissed the thoughts. Ely has been with him from when he was only worth less than $100,000. She had given him no reason to doubt or suspect her, but he just couldn't help but think about what his friend said. Nothing felt normal anymore. Thomas didn't like the way his thoughts were beginning to affect his relationship with his family. He found himself staying at work later than usual. He needed to get the thoughts out his head once and for all. Maybe he should ask Ely, he thought, but that would be a dumb idea. He wouldn't expect Ely to confirm her infidelity. There were other ways to confirm his worries. He thought about a DNA test, but decided that would be his last resort. Thomas went about asking cautiously from other domestic staff.
"I haven't seen or heard anything out of the usual between Raph and anyone in the house since I've been working here, sir,"
Jasmine, the cook, said. Other domestic workers said the same thing. Only one person was remaining: Raph. One Friday evening, Thomas called home and told them he would be home late for dinner. He took Raph on a boys' hangout. "Hey, Raph, I've got a question," Thomas said with a smile. "You know you can always ask me anything, sir," Raph replied. Thomas knew he didn't need a permission to ask the question he wanted to, but he wanted his longest-serving driver to feel more comfortable. "I know that already, Raph. I can't be a normal guy anymore with you." "I don't mean it that way, sir. I was not expecting you to ask my permission before asking me a question. If you have a free pass to be with my Ely, would you take it?" Raph almost spilled his beer. He stared at his boss for a while, wondering where that question came from. "Oh, come on now, Raph. Just answer the question. Trust me, I just want to brag about my wife next time I meet Collins and the boys." Raph was uncomfortable with the question, but he knew he owed his boss an answer. It took him a while to finally answer the question. "Honestly, sir, if you weren't my boss, I would have. Ely is one of the hottest ladies I've ever met." Thomas let out a loud crackle. "I knew I made the right choice with Ely. They say your wife isn't good enough if other men don't want to be with her." That's right, sir. Raf heaved a deep breath of relief, seeing his boss's reaction to his response. He had to be honest with the man that has taken him under his roof for over a decade and treated him like a brother. To Raf, it was an innocent question that needed an honest response. But to Thomas, he was getting the answers he needed. Although Raf's response doesn't prove anything yet, it only showed him that his driver wouldn't hesitate to sleep with his wife if he got the chance to. Thomas was ready for the next stage of his investigation. He knew he had to be careful after that evening with Raf. If Raf told Eli the question he asked, she would know he was suspicious. Eli was a smart woman. His next move must be discreet. There was no need to rush into a DNA test. Thomas kept his eyes on Eli and waited for anything that would show that she caught wind of the discussion he had with their driver. Weeks passed, and Eli didn't give off any suspicious moves. Thomas decided to carry on with the next plan. One morning, he got the children ready for school and had Raf take them to school. He took their toothbrushes and carefully replaced them with new ones. As he drove to the lab, he thought of what he would do if the results came back negative. He didn't want to give it a thought. The millionaire had a lot at stake if his suspicions became true. Thomas built his life around his name, family, and business. If anything happens to his family, it will have a ripple effect on his public image and his business. He didn't want to imagine the negative side of a negative outcome. He got to the lab and paid the geneticist a huge sum. "You must keep this between us. No one else must know about this test," Thomas said. The geneticist knew Thomas and the power he wielded in the society. He also knew how getting on the business icon's good book can bring him favors. He simply played along and kept it discreet. That part was over. Now Thomas had to wait for the results. He tried not to let thoughts of the results distract him from his business and family. Jessica, Tara, and Brendan were still his children until the result says otherwise. He treated his kids with love and made love to his wife like they always did. No one knew he was already up to something. 5 days later, Thomas received a call from the geneticist. It was time for the reveal. He drove to the lab to pick up the test results. The look on the geneticist's face made him smile. "Do you prefer I read it out or you want to see them?" the geneticist asked. "Just tell me the outcomes," Thomas replied. The geneticist shook his head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas. They're not your children." Thomas laughed and snatched the results from his hand. He looked at them one after the other. It was all 0%. It wasn't just Jessica. Tara and Brendan were both not his children. How did it happen? Thomas could feel his whole world crashing on him. He didn't know where to start. No one would have imagined that a simple joke would lead to such a heartbreaking reveal. Thomas got into his car and went on a long drive. He thought about taking a trip overseas and not coming back. How would he unlove the children he watched come out of their mother's womb? Many ideas came to his mind. Eli, Jessica, Tara, and Brendan waited at home for Daddy to return from work. It was the first time he was late without a calling to inform them. They were all worried. Eli tried his cells, but they were all unreachable. She called his office, and they informed her that he already left the office. Eli didn't want the children to panic, so she lied. She told them that their father had a meeting away from the office. It only calmed them down for a while. Soon, Thomas drove into the property. The kids ran out to meet him. He got out from the car, opened his arms wide, and received them. "I'm sorry for coming home late," Thomas said with a smile. He brought them their favorite snacks as a bribe for their late coming. Eli stood at the door, wondering why he was late this time, but she was grateful to see him back in one piece. "Everyone was worried about you, honey," Eli said as she hugged him. Thomas apologized and thanked her for taking care of the kids. He showed no sign of his recent discovery. It was a happy home as ever. He even made Raf drop him at work the following morning. All seemed good. Thomas's next step was to confirm Raf was the father of his kids, which was easy. He deliberately made a cut on Raf's hand, while they were both working in the yard, and took the tool to the lab. The result turned out that Raf was the father of all 3 of his children. Thomas and his family woke up one day, and there was no Raf to drop the children in school. Eli and Thomas dialed his cell several times, but it went straight to voicemail. Everyone was worried, including other employees. The family got the police involved and they opened an investigation but couldn't find Raf. Eli knew only one person that was capable of making Raf disappear without a trace, but she wondered why Thomas would do that. There was only one reason. "Why did you do it?" Eli asked. Thomas poured himself a glass of wine from his private bar, took a sip, and sat on his favorite chair. "3 children, Eli. How could you do that to me? He was your lover all along. You made me hire him immediately. We got married so that you could keep him close and have him any time you wanted." Eli couldn't deny it. She tried to blame Thomas for not always being around, but Thomas countered her, reminding her how many times he had to travel with the entire family just so he could be with them. Eli pleaded for forgiveness. "You'll keep the children. They'll carry my name, but you'll move with them overseas. There'll be no divorce, no words to the media. I can't have you ruin my marriage and also ruin my name and business." Thomas also told Eli she should never be with any other man, and the children must never know what happened to their marriage. He would visit when he pleases and divorce her when he wishes. Eli was grateful for her life. She knew Thomas had the connections to make her disappear permanently like Raf. She also knew her husband was only trying to protect his empire. She could pursue a case of murder, but she had no evidence Thomas killed Raf. Some days later, Thomas put Eli and her children on a plane and sent them abroad and told the media his family was no longer safe in the city. Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to like this video, share and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.